was 15 when I consciously decided to make languages essential pillar of my life. Mandarin was my fifth language. It was her second language. And guess what? We progressed at the same rate. I wouldn't even let myself set a big goal because I was scared that I would set it and then fail.
But if you go with friends and you pretend you speak the language, they hate you. Do you think in 10 years we still need to speak languages?
I have no idea.
Azrin, welcome to the podcast. Before the world knew you as the language nerd, who were you?
Well, before the language nerd, let's see. I've always been interested in languages, frankly. Almost my whole life, languages have been a core part of my being. Growing up, I went to a French school. I spoke Gujarati in the household and English with my friends. So right from the get-go, there's three languages. My dad's side of the family spoke Hindi as well. I didn't speak it, but they did speak it. So that was another language that was around me. So languages, I'd say, have been a part of my life for a very, very long time. I was 15 when I consciously decided to make languages essential pillar of my life. I went to France and lived in a very, very rural town for 3 months and loved it. Fell in love with French, came back, fell in love with Spanish because I had a great teacher in school. I had friends in my class. It was super, super fun. In university, I took a linguistics class. Didn't even know what linguistics was. I'd never heard the word linguistics. I was like, what the heck is linguistics? Mom's like, it's like a language. I was like, is it a specific language? No, it's just language. Wait, do I learn all the languages? No. You just learn about language. I was like, what? And I went in, loved that. And I thought, aha, okay, I think there's something here with languages. And so that's, language is a very big part of my life and has been for ages, really.
You said already that you grew up speaking three languages. How do you think that shaped the kid, Azrin as a kid back then?
Well, I think I would say first and foremost that most, at least in a lot of my friend circles, growing up with multiple different languages was not always common. If someone had a family from another country, then fair enough, they would also perhaps have multiple languages. But I would say it's not necessarily a super common upbringing for people. But for me, it was normal. It was normal. It was normal asking my mom, like, "Oh, is the sound in this word pronounced like this, or is it like this? Oh my god, this letter in this language sounds like this letter and that." Like, it was just a normal thing. It was absolutely normal. It's actually quite funny because a lot of parents, from what I've heard anyway, they'll be concerned about speaking another, like, let's say they speak Spanish as their first language, but they live in Canada. They'll be concerned about speaking Spanish in the household because they think it'll delay the child from learning English. And at least from my personal experience, I could say absolutely not. I grew up with three and a half languages. Like, that's not at all what happened. And I know many, many people who have families from another country. And so they speak one language at home and one language at school. And it's just normal. The brain does a very good job of segmenting the two languages.
I'm raising a bilingual, at least bilingual kid. My son is ended up speaking English as his first language. Don't ask me how and why. It just happened. He's learning German in school now, and or he's speaking German in school and kindergarten, and then we try to get Romanian as well, because we don't want to miss the connection with our roots, and we think it's important for him to speak the language, because any extra language is a benefit. And there was always mixed opinions at the beginning, because we had some people that told us don't do it because it's going to be hard for him. But I read an interesting article after after he was already big and we already did the 2-3 languages, that actually is developing a part of the brain that is not developed during maturity when you learn an additional language, which I think it's quite interesting. Do you think that due to the fact that you spoke the 3 languages already, your brain somehow was open to learn new languages, was easy for you to understand new languages?
I don't think so per se because I'll tell you I'll tell you the following story. So Mandarin was the fifth language that I learned. And when I was learning Mandarin, I was learning alongside someone else who was also learning Mandarin, and we were learning at the same time. Now, the biggest difference between the two of us was Mandarin was my fifth language. It was her second language. We were similar age, similar everything, but she had no real experience with learning languages. And we learned basically using similar approaches classes, some immersion, self study, very, very similar approaches, very similar amounts of time being spent. And guess what? We progressed at the same rate. Like, we would always be in the same classes, we would always have roughly the same level. So I thought to
That's
myself, "Well,
interesting.
I don't think so." Now there are certain things that to me don't come as natural, but there are other things that come more naturally. Using the example of the Mandarin, my Mandarin speaking friend, my Mandarin learning friend, she, for example, seemed to have a much easier time. It was much more natural for her to learn the reading and writing side. It was much slower for me to learn that, but it's
Mhm.
very relatively relatively quick, let's say, much easier for me, let's say, to pick up the pronunciation side. And I would say primarily because we have different interests. She likes to sit there and write characters and read them. I like to practice pronunciation and try and sound
Speak the
as
language.
close to native as possible. So even there, is it a natural talent? No, I think that she prefers to do one type of studying. I prefer to do another type of studying.
Mhm.
So lo and behold, she gets better at one aspect of the language. I get better at another, but at the end of the day, our levels are very similar, even multiple
Co
years in.
Okay, that's quite interesting, really interesting. Um, I've seen something in I worked among a lot of people that are speaking two languages at least. So German is the native language where I live, and English is something that everyone mostly needs in the area when I work where I work
Makes sense, yeah.
in. And I have to say, I see the people are transforming based on the language that they speak. I have the feeling that they are different persons when they speak different languages. And I want to ask you the same. Do you have a different personality when you speak a different language?
To some degree, yeah. To some degree, yes. To some degree, no. And I think there's a few factors behind it. One of them will definitely be one's proficiency. So if you're not very good at one language, you're limited as to what kind of language you can use, which therefore limits changes how you speak, and which changes your personality, or at least how people perceive you at a bare minimum. I think that's one aspect, but the bigger aspect, especially if you have a certain level of proficiency, I think, at least for me, is the people that I was around when I was learning were so influenced by the people that were around that
Correct.
in French, for example, the type of people I was around, the environment I was in was wildly different than, for example, in Mandarin. Like the influences I've had in each language were quite different. And so I think that that is definitely a factor too to how what kind of personality someone might have. It's also worth looking at cultural norms. So if you're someone who's really trying to fit into a certain culture and not just speak the language. You also want to integrate the culture into yourself. Well, there's cultural norms that are very, very different. Sometimes they're even very minute. They're not, sometimes when we talk about cultural norms, we talk in generalities. Oh, Canadians are polite. Who knows, right?
Mhm.
We have these general statements that we
Mhm.
make about different cultures, but sometimes it's that the cultural difference show up in the tiny details. Something as simple as when I was in France as a teenager, the very first time I went, I was living in very rural France, and I was considered by some people as a little bit rude because I didn't always say hello. And to me, I was like, "What?" There are circumstances where it was required, quote unquote, by their cultural norms, at least in my social circles at a bare minimum, to say hello, where in my cultural upbringing, in my what was normal for me would be in those situations that I didn't have to necessarily say hello. And it's such a tiny little detail that makes huge difference.
I had this from the French culture. I had someone from the US who was living in France, and she said exactly this thing that one of the
Really?
biggest learnings that she had to do is to always start not with excuse me, like it's normal in the American culture, but to
Sure.
start with bonjour, and then after that to speak the question or to say whatever she wants to say. But
Mhm.
she said ever that was the one of the biggest culture shock that she was expressing.
Well, it's one of the things that's really interesting is that, you know, I talk to a lot of people who might travel somewhere, and they'll say that the people in XYZ country are insert statement. Could be rude, could be polite, could be friendly, could be
Yeah,
mean, could be
correct.
open, could be closed. Like they'll have their statement. And one of the things that I find very interesting is that the experience that they have has to do with the way that the culture you come from naturally blends or doesn't blend
Correct.
with that country. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you think XYZ country's closed, as an example, it actually might not mean that they are a very closed culture. It could just be that your default way of being and their default way of being, they don't mix all that well. And if you literally make 3 behavioral shifts about how you behave, like the 3, like you say hello, bonjour in French, for example, you make the tiniest behavioral shift, and all of a sudden someone goes from closed to open. I actually have a story like that from Germany. So I've been to Germany uh, 2 times? Yes, 2 times in my life. Maybe 2 or 3 times. 2 times. And both times that I've been, the second time was definitely a bit more memorable because a bit older and a little bit older, but anyway, both times, I thought people were remarkably friendly. People say, "Oh, Germans," at least people I know will say Germans are very like this and orderly and not friendly is not the word that I generally hear from people when they go to Germany. That's not the adjective that most people I know use. When I was in Germany, I experienced Germans, almost every single person I met, to be actually remarkably friendly with me, very, very friendly and polite, and I had a lovely experience with people. And I thought, wow, how like that's very interesting. I wonder why my experience was different. And I was talking to my friend who used to, he Canadian friend who lived and worked in Germany. His German is excellent. He lived there and for a long time. His wife is German, and he's like, I have a question, Azrin. Did you? I don't speak German. He's like, "Did you, when you approach people, what language did you start in?" I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "What language would you address them in?" I said, "Well, I'd always try German. I don't speak German, but I try really hard. I had a book at home and I try to read it. I had these videos, and so if I wanted to get a coffee, I would try so hard to do it in German to the best of my ability." And he said, "Yeah, if you do that with Germans," in his experience, he says, "if you do that with Germans, they do treat they'll be very open and friendly with you because they can
Which
see
makes
you're
sense.
trying." I was
Which
like,
makes sense.
"Oh, never thought of that."
But here there are two kind of cultures in Europe as well, Asren.
Mhm.
So if you talk about the Italians or the Germans, if you go to Italian and you try to say un espresso or something that sounds Italian, they are extremely happy. They are talking to you. They are hugging you. They are,
Mm.
you know, that kind Italian way. But if you go in France and you pretend you speak the language, they hate you.
Mm.
So that's quite interesting because that's happened, and it's again a cultural thing. So it happened to me in Strasbourg. I 2 hours, 1.5 hours away from Strasbourg, and due to a thing that I'm not so proud of, I studied 11 years of French in school, but I'm not able to actually speak. I'm able to build some sentences. I'm able to say some simple phrases, but that's it. And I try to fake it. I try to order something. I take a coffee or something, and then they continue speaking with me like fluently, and I was out of the discussion, and then they like, why they are you even trying? That's why I'm saying I think it's different from country to country. But
Yeah.
coming back to what you said regarding Germans, I have a interesting cultural thing which I think I haven't told until now. There was one thing which for me was really hard at the beginning and had nothing to do with the culture, with the language, but somehow it had to do with the let's say with the unspoke language. Like there is a Germany has a I don't know how to call it, the habit of shaking hands. Whenever
Mm.
you meet, you shake hands, and usually in
Right.
the culture where I come from, you only shake hands to men. This is how I grow up. This is
Mhm.
what I know. Here you shake hands to women as well. It's the same thing, but you have to shake the hands first, the hand of the woman, and then the hand of the man, because that's the sign of
Oh,
the
okay.
respect.
I didn't
If
know
you
that.
don't do
Okay.
that, if you don't do that, the man, so whomever is a man in the round is refusing to shake your hand until you shake the hands of the woman,
Mm.
which is extremely interesting. And this, together with the handshake, you are mandatory to have an eye contact. Because if you don't have an eye contact, it's a sign of um, disrespect.
Mhm.
So this is something which I
Yeah.
learned exactly connected to your story of being cold and not cold. I do agree with you. I think you cannot just say X people are Y or Y people are Z, because it doesn't make sense. There are no general.
Yeah. And you know how one of the things that I've heard people talk about is a beauty privilege, where if you look very beautiful, then you get certain privileges in life, both man and woman. And in language, I think one of the beauty privileges, it's not a beauty privilege, but I'm going to call it that. I'm going to call it the pronunciation privilege. If you sound like you have good pronunciation, in my experience, that gets you very far. It creates this instant, and because I'm a pronunciation nut, I love pronunciation. I've always liked it. Although, the inspiration behind it was interesting. You talked about France, for example. I don't know if this is true or this is the connection my brain made. I genuinely don't know. All I know is that it worked. I remember feeling like when I was France that the fact that I wasn't hyper fluent in French, I remember feeling like that was a barrier to friendship and a barrier to the relation to the culture. I felt like I couldn't connect with them because I wasn't completely native. But I remember feeling that frequently, and so I made the conscious decision to become so good at French while I was there that French people would think I was French. And that became the constant thing I thought about for pronunciation, for grammar, everything. I thought I will now become French. And so as a result, I had excellent pronunciation and et cetera, et cetera. But then because of that decision, in every other language I've learned, you know, at least the pronunciation side of things, I want to make sure is really, really, really good. And that's always served me very, very well. Or the second you talk to someone, they're so disarmed by just the fact, even if you're a beginner and you walk up to someone and you only know one sentence, all you know is whatever it is. But you say, like, imagine if you only knew how to say, "Hey, where's the bathroom?" And he said, "Hey, man, where's the bathroom in here?" If that's the way you said it and that's all you knew, right? Like, and then it's just this very disarming factor. Now, some people say, like, "Oh my God, yeah, that's so good," but then they talk to you so fast and they think you're really fluent, and that doesn't bother me personally. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me in the slightest because I still think the pronunciation gives you a halo effect, and people. I don't know. It's just always been very positive for me when I've had that good or excellent pronunciation.
Correct. I have to say it's 100% your story. So I have to say I was tricked a few times. Again, fun fact from Germany. Due to the way in which the German language is built, their pronunciation in English is really really good. And even though they haven't seen the spoken language, because everything in Germany is dubbed on TV, so they only see German everywhere.
Hmm.
Like they haven't heard an English spoken language somewhere else except school, and they're most of them, I don't say that everyone, but most of people, most of the people, they only know a small family of words, but their pronunciation make it like this, like you think, oh my god, these guys are good. But at the end, it's just the way in saying things. You're
Hmm.
absolutely right.
One of the things about pronunciation too is pronunciation facilitates friendship. I've noticed this in
Correct.
myself, but also with others that I've seen in Canada that speak English as their foreign language. And one of the things I've noticed is that when they have good pronunciation, native speakers welcome them in. So they can make the native speaker friend, and then they forgive the fact that there's things they don't know. So they'll talk to
Correct.
them. They'll talk to them naturally because, oh, this guy sounds like me. Yeah, I can just talk to him. Then they talk. The non-native speaker says, "Wait, I didn't understand. What does that word mean?" They go, "Oh, you don't know? Oh, really? Okay." And then they explain it to you in a very friendly fashion.
Correct.
Now, I'm sure if you didn't have excellent pronunciation, people might still do that too. All I'm saying is that for me, I've just seen it and felt it myself that when you have good pronunciation, that is often a reaction you get from native speakers. It's pretty interesting. Just a little observation, just an observation that I've made.
Correct. Fully agree. Aslan, I would like to go a bit back in your story and ask you,
Let's
how
do it.
do you did you end up in rural France when you were 15? So
An exchange
originally
trip.
from Canada. Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was an exchange trip. So the way it worked is you fill out a bunch of forms, and then someone in France fills out forms, and they somehow pair you. And the person I lived with just happened to live in a very rural area. Just that's how it worked out. And the weirdest thing of all, not only did he live in a rural area, but somehow, some way, someone in that exact same rural area also applied. So someone in my high school and myself, we both ended up in the same high school in France. I was like, "Ho we are in the middle of nowhere and we're in the same school? How does that make any sense?" Yeah.
How was the experience between the French learn language that you had learn in Canada and the real life in rural France?
Um, so when I went there, the family I was living with, they were quite impressed with my French overall. So they will, to this day, I'm still in touch with them, and they will still say like, "Yeah, when you arrived, you were already like at least pretty good in French." And so that's the comment that they made. Now, my personal experience was that there were lots of things that I noticed on a day-to-day basis that were causing me problems. So there are words I use that were used more in Canada, but they don't use in France. My accent, I didn't have like a thick, really difficult to understand accent, but I had something like an English, like a English accent, Canadian accent, Quebecois accent, and then a bit of a random Indian thing mixed in as well. I had like Indian R's, and so kind of this hybrid accent, but still very, very clear. Like there's no comprehension issues when I spoke to people at all. But again, it was something that I would notice. I'd say a word, they'd say, "That's not the word we use here." I'd say something, they'd go, "Whoa, that's not how we pronounce that here." And so I made the conscious decision when I was in France to actually speak like, well, actually, I didn't know that what I was doing was not necessarily wrong. I just assumed I was wrong.
Mhm.
Like some things maybe were more Quebecois. I just didn't know. I thought, well, the native speakers are telling me that this is the word we use. Maybe I learned it wrong. Like I'm not a native speaker. So then I copied them accent wise, pronunciation wise, grammar wise, vocabulary wise. Upon returning to Canada, slowly but surely I learned, oh, I could have kept saying that. That's Quebecois. That thing I used to say actually was wrong. Okay. But in the beginning, I thought everything was wrong. I didn't
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I mean, first of all, for a 15-year-old, is an experience overall to leave his home country, to leave his home area, to leave his comfort zone of his family, his mom, where she's cooking food for you and making the bed and
Sure, sure,
everything.
sure.
To go out and besides that, to do that in a foreign language and not um, there's this impression that everyone who speaks English, they have a kind of an entitlement, like, oh, I can go everywhere and everyone speaks my language. So that's the thing, and not having that, like going there with a natural wish to learn the language and speak the language like a French guy. I think that says something already about your future and how your um, how your upbringing went, because it's not easy to have this. For sure, it helped that you spoke three languages already, but still, you need to have a certain open mind um, to see the things like this when you go in a different country. Um, you finished. You said you did linguistics in university. You finished university, and you said, "Okay, I want to get the." You got the first job. What was the first job that you got?
Yeah, so actually, so in university, I just took linguistics classes. My major is actually French and Spanish. So I didn't do a linguistics
Okay.
major. I just did a couple. I did quite a number, but my major is French and Spanish, a language and literature degree. But yeah, after university, my first job actually started when I was in university. So the full time job that I did, I started in my first year of university. I owned a window cleaning franchise. So I was a business owner. Like it wasn't a job, it was my business, but with a franchise. And I started that when I was 18. That was the first year of university. Then upon graduation, that became my full time pursuit.
Why that and nothing to do with languages?
So when I was 17 years old, so before going to university, I ended up going to this business conference. Now, um, it was a little bit how would I those very motivational conferences that some people say have no real content? It's just a bunch of motivation. They try and sell you $1,000 programs, and
typical
that's what I
typical
went to. I went
multi
to one of those.
typical multi-level marketing things, right?
Yeah, but they're not in multi-level marketing because I did get involved in that as well, which is a whole other story. But they're not. They're just like a personal development company basically.
Okay.
And so I went to one because my mom had gone to one of their conferences or one of their events rather, and she told me that I could learn a lot from it. She warned me going in. She's like, "Hey, don't buy anything. You might want to buy stuff. They're a little weird sometimes, and it's a bit hokey. Like, just try and focus on the content because a lot of the stuff is the content is wrapped in some, hype and things like that." She's like, "Just focus on the content. There's some really good stuff there. I think you'll like it." I didn't want to go. She's like, you have to go. I'm making you go." I said, "Okay, fine." And so I went there, and that was my first introduction to business. And so that was what really got things started. Fast forward about a year, when I was 18, I was sitting in one of my university lecture theaters, and this person stands up in front of the whole class, and they said that they were recruiting for a franchise company, and the franchise hired students, and they not hired, but you become a franchisee, and they would train you in all business basics. I thought, well, that'd be kind of cool. I went to this conference. I like business. I know nothing about it. So this could be a way for me to learn. So they passed out a form. I filled it out, and then they interviewed me, so on and so forth. And that was what I did.
For how long have you done that?
Almost, so a little over 5.5 years. I used to say 5.5 years, but I looked at it recently. It's actually almost 6 years.
Okay. What what made you stop? What made you stop and say, okay, I'm done with this. I want to do languages.
Two things. So first of all, when I started to work there, in my head, I thought to myself, I will do this as a way to learn about how to run a business. Then I will leave and start my own business. That was always the plan from the age of 18. I just didn't know what kind of business I would run. I didn't know, right? And so I thought, well, this is the way to learn, and then I'll leave and start my own thing. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing that happened was actually I was enjoying it quite a bit, and I thought I would just make a career there. I thought, you know what, this is going really well. I'm getting good at this. I enjoy this. Let's stick with this at least for, I don't know, a while, like a long while. But then a series of events happened. Number one, so hey, we got to take a step back. So I was a franchise owner for 4 years. So I ran my own business for 4 years. Upon graduation, I was hired to be a general manager. So I was actually running a division as an employee. So it's like employee with a bunch of bonuses based on your divisional performance. So in that job, I was laid off. Then I was rehired to run a very large franchise. They had a bunch of change in management. And I was like, yeah, I don't enjoy this anymore. I always did this as a way to eventually leave and start my own business. I don't like this anymore. This is a good time to leave and try. So very long-winded answer, but that's the answer.
The the experience in business helped from there, I'm pretty sure. But
Absolutely.
still, but
100%.
but still, I think the start in anything that you do 100% on your own is hard.
Yes.
Was there ever a moment at the beginning when you said, "Oh my God, I think I've done a mistake"?
Not that I think I've done a mistake. No, not that. But the first 3 years, I was definitely very anxious, quite nervous about it, and very, very low confidence.
Do you think that the experience of working gave you the patience to build your business? I don't know if it makes sense what I'm asking.
Yeah, like basically, like the fact that I'd done it once before made me think I could do it again. You mean like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Partially, yeah, to a certain degree, because I knew that I'd done something similar. So to a certain degree, yes. But I will admit that I was the first 3 years. The first 3 years, I was very, very tentative. I was very cautious. The thing I was cautious about was taking emotional risks, not financial risks. Not
Mhm.
like, oh, but no, emotional risks. So I wouldn't even let myself set a big goal because I was scared that I would set it and then fail. And what would that mean that I spent almost 6 years learning about business? Now I go in my own thing and I'm unsuccessful. What does that mean about the past 6 years? So in order to protect my ego or protect my emotional, maybe my ego is the best way to put it. To protect my ego, what I decided what I would do is I would set very small goals that I was extremely confident that I could hit, or at least as confident as I possibly could be that I could hit them.
Small steps, baby steps.
Yes, but in my world, baby steps are not big enough. So one of the things that for me, when I make baby steps, I can have a tendency to make the baby steps actually too small. So as an example,
Mhm.
if I made an extra I don't know, I'm making a number up, but if I made an extra $100 in a year, $100 in a year, I might have told myself, well, that's a baby step in the right direction. But then 3 years later, you're making an extra $300. And if you're only making, you know, I wasn't making very much in those first 3 years. Let's just say that. If I wasn't living at home with my mom, like I couldn't have done, like that wouldn't have been possible. Right. And, but like, that's just not, those baby steps are way too baby.
um, how did Calgary Language Nerd started, and how? I have to rephrase the question.
Sure, sure,
So,
sure.
if you look now back, at the start, and you think how it started like an idea, do you think now it's where you want it to be back then, or the development went in a bit different
Hmm.
direction than you initially started?
That's actually a good question. Um, I didn't really have a clear vision of what it would look like from the beginning. So I remember vividly that. So when I had a window cleaning franchise, the way, especially in the last couple of years, my job looked like this. I had multiple different and lots of franchisees who were in my division. They each had multiple employees. So there's lots of people that I'm responsible for across a very expansive region. So multiple different cities across different provinces. And Canada is big. I think it's something like 17 Frances fit just in my province. And I had I think it was 17, something like that. I can't remember the number, but it's something like that. And I had 3 provinces, right? The regions would change year by year, but roughly speaking, it was like central Canada-ish, let's say. It's like, that's a lot. That's a big area to cover. Like, you're flying and you're driving and there's all these people and the stress. Every day you open your email and there's like 17 things that make you go, and your heart's like racing a million beats a minute. Anyway, the point is, when all that ended, I was like, I don't know if I ever want to manage lots of people. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. So but I was like, but if I want to run a real business, I'll have to manage people. So I actually didn't know. I was like, I honestly don't know what this will look like, but I have to start. I have to start. So in the beginning, I just tutored privately. I just taught private classes. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, this is the way to start. Let me fill my schedule up and then I'll figure out what I want to do next. Like, I don't even know. So it's tough to answer your question because I didn't really have a vision for it. I didn't really have a vision for it in the beginning. I didn't have one. I just knew that I'm going to try this and let's figure it out as I go.
And when you got the idea, because now you have, as based on the information that I found, you have about 20 tutors and you teach about 15 languages. When this
That was
progress,
previously, but yeah, at one point, yes.
okay, but
Yeah.
when this progress started?
So I would say a lot of it triggered 3 years in. So I remember, let me think, 2016. So about after 2019, I want to say. So about 3 years. And I started like late 2016. So roughly 3 years in. Because 3 years in, I was like, wait a second, I'm not really making any money here. Like, I'm being a little, I think 3 years is enough time to like try something and see if there's any kind of traction. And I was like, year after year, nothing's really changing. So I'm going to give myself one more year. And then I can tell myself, listen, I gave it 4 years. Like, I can go get a job. I can do something else. I said, I'm going to give myself one more year. And I'm really going to like pay attention, like really pay attention and try and make this work. So 3 years in, that's when a lot of that started. And thank goodness the fourth year was a lot better. And in my mind, what I used to do after those first 3 years, what I told myself is every year bought me another year.
Mm-hmm.
So if I saw enough progress, I was like, okay, that's real meaningful progress now. So the fourth year is the first year I ever made a living wage, like a wage that someone could live on. Like, okay, like this is a wage that people make. This is the wage where people can pay their bills and have a life and like do their life and just, be normal, be a normal human.
Not
Like,
live
hey, I
with the
made a
parents.
wage.
Not live with
Like
the
you can
parents ever.
survive and be happy, right? And I was like, cool, that's the first year. Fifth year, same thing. And then just kind of growing little by little. And every year that it was growing a bit or the indications were positive, I thought, well, I bought myself another year. Well, I bought myself another year. I bought myself another year. Right? I kept buying myself another year or 2 years.
What's one of the biggest mistakes that you made at the beginning that taught you a big lesson?
Mm, couple of things. I'd say one of them was just one of the things that really held me back in the beginning was the fact that I was scared to let my ego get hurt. Right? Like I wouldn't set even a remotely big goal, even remotely, not even like a reasonable goal. I was scared to do that because that could hurt my feelings if I don't hit it. That was
I-
definitely one of
Isn't
them.
isn't it interesting that one of the biggest impact that something has on our life is the ego,
Yeah,
and it's nothing that actually somebody gives a crap. Sorry for saying this, but it's
that's fine.
something that you have it with yourself, and it stops you from doing a lot of big
Yeah,
things.
yeah, and it's not even like setting a like you know how some people, especially if you're in an entrepreneurial world, like the stereotypical entrepreneur says, "I'm gonna run this business that changes the world. I'm gonna start the Uber of this and the McDonald's of that and whatever." Like for me, I wasn't even setting anything remote. That's not what I mean by big goals. I just mean like something that's reasonable. Like reasonable. Like so right now I'm in a 4-year what's called a 4-year life transformation course essentially. It's kind of like a university degree and like the one of the goals in it is to double my annual like what I earn in a 4-year period. That's very reasonable. If someone actually pays attention, like that's huge. Like think about whatever your salary is and you double it in 4 years. Hey, that's pretty darn like that's really good. Could you imagine? That's crazy. But it's also
Absolutely.
it's absolutely something that is in the realm of possibility. And if you don't double it, let's say you get, 25% more pay in 4 years or whatever, right? You're still happy. You're like, "Well, I'm still happy." Like it's a reasonable goal to aim for. It's not like something absolute. It's not like I'm going to make $50 million a year in 4 years. No, it's nothing stupid like that. Right? It's just like, "Hey, I'm going to try and double my salary. I'm going to try and do it strategically." Right? That is reasonable, difficult, not easy, but possible. And if you fail, you're still happy.
Correct, because you still have more, and even
You
if you
still have
don't
more.
have more, you make the same, and it's still you should be happy. So it's not like something is affecting the quality of your life
Well,
in any
here's the
kind
thing
of
about
way.
me, like, I love progress, so I'm obsessed so I've learned this about myself, I love progress, so for 4 years, I was saying no progress, like, nothing, it would be an indication to me that I'm not on the right track. Like, clearly, my what I think the way I think reality works is not how reality works. I thought I could do XYZ and it worked, and it didn't work.
But still, it's something that you learn in the last 4 years, that you have tried something that didn't work, and you know what to change now. And I think
I think
still
I
it's
would
a
see it before
benefit.
the 4 years, though, I would be
For
seeing
sure,
it.
for
Yeah.
sure. But still, it's a benefit. So I think still something that you learn from. I don't
Yes.
consider necessarily a mistake or consider something wrong. I just think that it's a learning path on
Sure,
which we all
absolutely,
are.
definitely learning path, yeah.
I love the book. Most probably you know it. The book "Ego is the Enemy" from Ryan Holiday.
Oh, I haven't
Uh,
read it, no.
oh,
I know it, but I haven't read it.
I can not recommend it enough.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
really, really good book, and for everyone who has a problem and he got married with his ego, that's the perfect book to read. um, can you say a few words about CLN, about the Calgary Language Nerds? What's the philosophy? What's your philosophy in teaching the languages?
Sure, absolutely. So for the first 7 years, it was what I would call a traditional language teaching business. Private classes, tutors, try and make sure it's a positive experience. Like just anything, what you would get here, you would get at other reputable, good companies for the most part. I would say that's a pretty fair statement. For the past couple of years, it's been a little bit different. In the past couple of years, the focus has been on providing a reliable pathway to fluency. So if someone signs up, they can feel confident that okay, there is a reliable pathway that actually does lead to fluency in XYZ language.
Okay. Um, now you have tutors that you
Mhm.
have of different languages.
Yes.
Um, how do you choose someone who will represent your philosophy in teaching the language?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, it's a tough question because I actually don't have a good answer for you. I used to have a good answer. I used to, but I don't have one anymore because the first 7 years I had a system for hiring people. I knew what I was looking for. Now I'm not 100% sure. I really actually have a tough time speaking to it as of right now.
Is it the gut feeling?
No,
No?
no, no, it's
Oh,
a process. It's a
interesting. It's a
process. I have a
process.
process. Yeah, I have processes that I follow that generally lead to the right outcome. So I'll give you an example. In the first 7 years, um, some of the things that I was looking for would have been a I looked for punctuality. I looked for I looked for someone who, when they said something will happen, doesn't happen. So I would purposely, what I used to do in the interview process, I'd purposely give you certain like small tasks throughout the interview process, and I'd ask you to do it by a certain time, or I'd ask you when you want to do it by. I'd say, so when you want, I'd be like, hey, I need you to fill out XYZ. When can you send that to me? You'd say, oh, I can do it by Thursday. Okay, cool. And I would see if you sent it on Thursday, or if you sent it on Wednesday, or if you sent it on Friday, or I would just see what happened. So anyone who, all those like mini little mini promises they made, if they hit them all the time, that was a big plus. I look for things like internet connection. If it's an online teacher, like, do they have a good internet connection? Do they, is it clean? Is it smooth? Um, in the window cleaning franchise, we had a lot of training on recruiting and interviewing. So there were a whole bunch of things. They're behavioral traits, actually. They're behavioral traits we look for that we used to call them. Oh, they had a word for it. I forgot the word. It basically be like good people skills, basically. But they had a specific word for it, but I can't remember. And then it'd be a list of behaviors that you look for. If someone had those behaviors, that was a very positive sign. If someone likes their tutor, even if they've never taught a day in their lives, that's 75% of the equation. At least that was what I had back then. I was like, that's 75%. I can teach you the 25. See, in
Hmm.
the window cleaning franchise that I ran, the most peculiar thing about that business that the older I've gotten, the more I've realized how odd it is. And it really has influenced how I personally hire and train and how I make my decisions. The thing about, and also my upbringing too, which is a whole other story. My upbringing also reinforces this, which I actually only realized yesterday, funnily enough. But the thing is, in that franchise, every single position they hired for, from a window cleaner, like on the lowest level, all the way up to some high level manager, every single position, they did not expect you to know how to do the job before they hire you for the job. You can
That's
have no
so
experience in that
interesting.
job and they will teach you everything.
So
So
what
what, yeah, go ahead.
they were only looking for the human quality.
They knew what they wanted in a human, and they knew what type of person would be required to do that job and how they would work with them. So that was just normal. That's how to hire. In my brain, I thought that's how you hire people. So when I hired tutors, I didn't care if you taught before. I would look for the type of person I knew I would need to be able to teach you. So the people skills, I had a whole list of things I look for. The people skills were important because I knew that if I tell a student, "Hey, your tutor's a new tutor, but you'll have a good experience," they won't care that they're a new tutor because they'll like them as a human and they'll trust them as a human.
Which makes a lot of sense. Which makes a lot of sense because at the end, they know the language. Like you have a multilingual team. Anyhow, they
Mhm.
speak the language and they know the tutoring is something that you can learn, but being a
Yeah.
good human is not something that you
Now
can learn.
nowadays it's a bit different, which is I don't have a that's what I used to do, and I don't have a
Hmm.
good answer for you anymore, and I don't have one for you because now the way we teach is complete. The way that the program works is so wildly different from anything that exists that just hiring someone who has the personality and then training them in the back end, I'm not 100% sure that's a good idea, and I don't have a good answer anymore, and I also haven't hired anyone in a little while, so I don't actually
Hmm.
have a good answer for it right now.
I had managed in the past a multinationalities team. So I don't say multilingual because we basically spoke German and English. And even though it was limited to two languages, the multi, so the interculturality of the team was amazing. The fact that you had people coming from different backgrounds, doing different things, meeting every once in a while, doing some exchanges about culture. We had from, I don't know, if we talk geographically, from India, Kazakhstan, up to I think Brazil was on the left side of the map, if you put it like this. Um, what do you think is the biggest challenge in managing a multilingual team?
Hmm. Actually don't know. Never done it before.
Okay.
I don't know, I could guess, but I don't actually know. I have
The-
no I don't know.
th-
Like, I mean, my tutors are multilingual, I suppose, but it doesn't feel like a multinational, like, where they're it doesn't feel that way at all in the slightest. I've never had a
is it
it's
because
just
you
felt
speak?
super
Is it
I
because you
speak their
speak the
language and I feel
languages?
comfortable. Yeah, I don't know. It's never I've never I can understand the feeling behind your question of like, oh my God, you've got all these different cultures trying to mix and
Exactly.
I can totally see it. I just it's been such a non-issue that literally my first thought when you asked me the question was, I've never done that before. What do you mean I've never managed multilingual, multinational. I'm like, wait a second, that's what I do. Oh yeah. It's like
Exactly.
that's how little of a problem it is. And it's not even a I
It's
think
most pro-
I honestly think humans are human. They're human. And
correct. Correct.
we have different like we all have a different so if you look at culture, culture is like a mask. It's the mask, like you're Mexican, you got your little Mexican mask. You're Canadian, you got your little Canadian mask. You've got a mask. You just put the mask down. It's still not a human being. Like it's just a mask. It's
Correct.
not different.
Correct. But I think it's important to understand the different culture, the small culture differences. I give you
Hmm.
some examples.
Sure.
I don't think it's nice to talk. Yeah, okay, I will do it. I give you some. You note, for example, that the guys from Portugal are never on time
Hmm.
because the culture thing.
Hmm.
They are always at least 15 minutes too late. You know that you never set up meetings for someone in Spain at 8 a.m. in Spain because they are not in the office.
Hmm.
You know that you don't set up a meeting for someone in Romania, for example, after 7 p.m. because there's no one in the office. Like these small things I'm talking about. Like I'm
I
not
think
talking
for
about.
me, I'll let you finish. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm not talking about the how you handle people because that's not what I mean. I'm fully with you. Everyone is a human and we handle each other, but you just have to have that understanding of coming from different backgrounds and
Hmm.
having different habits in your
Yep.
country.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the reasons why I'm guessing here. I don't actually know, but I think one of the reasons why it's not been a huge problem is I'm very clear with expectations. I don't care what country you're from. This is what we have. This is like these are
Mm.
the expectations. If this is the job you want, actually two things. Two things. Now that I'm thinking of it, there's two big things. One is expectations. Like, hey, in this job, these are the things that are expected.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing, um, in the past, I don't have a good hiring philosophy now, unfortunately. So I need to make a new one that works for how I run the business. But I can say for the first 7 years, um, eh, they were strange interviews. They were very unusual interviews. I let them pick a lot about their job. There'd be
Mm-hmm.
like three things I cared about, and the rest was up to them. And so they would find it very odd. Like, what do you mean I can make my own schedule? It's like, well, there are certain things about scheduling that won't work for sure, but you have a lot of flexibility in how that works. How much vacation time do I get? How much do you want? Like, there's some stuff that would be completely unreasonable. Like like it'd be very there'd be many things where it'd be very focused on the human, and that could be why I didn't really have any issues. It could be. I actually don't know. I honestly don't know. But
You actually have a home office policy, right? Because everyone is working from their own home.
interestingly, not for the first let me think. I'd have to remember. Not initially, let's just say that. I can't remember exactly because it used to be all in person.
Ah, really?
And now it's all online because that's what we get requests for. It was like 99% in person before.
That's
Like, it was
so
Calgary.
interesting.
It's called Calgary Language Nerds. Why? It was Calgary. Like, we were like I had social events for language. I ran a language learning club basically. And now we had private classes and stuff too, but I ran a club. Like, we had pub nights, barbecues, game nights, coffee shop events, drop-in classes. There were probably 500 people a month coming through different events, something like that. Like, hundreds of people a month, all in person, all in person. We had a coffee shop that every single Saturday was our coffee shop all day from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. or whatever it was. Like, all day, it was us in that coffee shop and no one really else. People coming in and out, saying hello, saying hi, playing this game, practicing this language. Then we go have dinner. Then a lot of the sounds stereotypical, but the Chinese people would then go do karaoke, and I go karaoke with them, and right, like it was the Chinese group. It was a Chinese learning group that would go karaoke, and then I would go and like I'd leave my house at 9:30 in the morning or 10 in the morning or whatever, and be home at like 1 a.m. sometimes. Like, it was like all day. Like, it was a
Did,
huge.
did
It's
Corona
Calgary.
did Corona change everything?
That's when it started, yeah. Yeah.
It's good on one side because it's expanded your market to the whole world, but it's
Mhm.
bad on the other side because I'm kind of guy who's missing the social connection. Like
Well,
I
what's quite
think it's
interesting about that is like it's so it was like online for a few years, like during lockdowns and all that stuff. I went back to in person. It was very unpopular. Like I couldn't get traction at all. And I was like, this is weird. So then I went all online and I was like, people are not coming in person. No one's asking for in person. Nobody wants to do in person. And then recently, I'd say the past year, maybe year and a half, um, in person is I can see the difference again. So I run like a pub night and like it's packed every time. And like now it's like, okay, now I can feel the in person swing happening again. So now I'm doing some more in person stuff again.
I think it's coming back. That's my
Mhm.
feeling. I think people are so. I honestly think that home office is there to stay in a kind of way. If it's gonna be 2 days a week, 3 days a week, doesn't matter. But I think people are missing the social interaction, and by
Yeah,
social
I think so.
interaction, I don't necessarily mean the work social interaction. I really mean the social
Socializing.
interaction.
Yeah,
Exactly,
socializing.
exactly. Um, Azrin, if I would come to your school today, I will tell you I want to learn Mandarin.
Sure.
Um, what would be the first steps that I would take? And what would be the, let's say, if you can, of course, you cannot give me a full cost, but you can give me a like let's say as a starting package.
Yeah, for sure. So usually for a starting package, it won't be very expensive. Like right now, I have the deal of the week right now is you get 3 lessons for $39, and you get to get the ball rolling. Um, and then yeah, in terms of what to expect, so there's a few different things that matter. First and foremost, we focus on fluency. Now, whether that means conversational, whether that means functional, whether it means completely bilingual, it doesn't matter. People have different goals, but we're really trying to aim for some actual level of fluency here, not just learning some basics. That's the first thing. The second thing worth knowing is if someone is aiming for fluency, almost certainly there's a couple of rare exceptions, but almost certainly a very comprehensive self study plan will be required. A self study plan is going to be a part of the process. And most of the time, if you sign up for a group class, a private class, any kind of class, the self study that you're given, the homework, if we use more basic language, the homework that's given is actually insufficient. It's insufficient in many different ways. It could be insufficient in variety, it could be insufficient in quantity, or it could be insufficient in instructions. Like they might say, look, I want you to do, I'll give you an example. I've been told before, hey, do pages XYZ in your textbook or workbook. And if I say anything else I should do, yeah, just maybe watch some TV. And that's the extent. Yeah, I love this show. Go check it out. Okay, cool. But you're not told how much time to spend. You're not told
Hmm.
how long it takes to reach a certain level. You're not like it's just very vague in a sense. So for us, it's really about specificity to say, look, here's what you need to do. Here's what we'll do in class. Here's what we'll do outside of class. Here's what to expect every step of the way.
I will link everything down in
Sure.
the show notes captions because I think it's important for everyone who wants to do it. I think it's a nice way to start, and you don't have to do it for something. You just have to want to do something new this year or maybe next year, beginning of next year, to say, okay, I want to learn Mandarin. Fun fact you said about shows, and I have to tell you again, coming from Romania, I grew up watching TV a lot because we discovered the TV after the revolution. So
Hmm.
we got a lot of Spanish telenovelas. Not Spanish, Mexican telenovelas, South American. My wife will kill me because I don't know exactly the country, but it's South American. Um, Due to that fact, most of the people my age are able to understand Spanish at a
Got
really
it.
good level. And
Okay.
some of the girls who watch more than the boys are able to speak the language as well,
Cool.
which I find extremely interesting. And it was a generation in Romania that was raised by Natalia Oreiro and Talia. So just a fun fact. Um, Azrin, I have let's say a daily topic that I want to discuss with you. I think
Sure. Absolutely.
AI translation is getting crazy at the moment.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the features that the new AirPods have are insane. And if you ask me for 5 years ago, I would say that's not never possible,
Hmm.
and now it's done. So let me ask you in the most direct way: do you think in 10 years we still need to speak languages?
I have no idea.
Do you
Yeah, I
think
have
that
no.
the
I mean, I don't know. Like maybe, probably at some point, you have some ear pod in. You don't have to. No, probably
do you
not.
think
At
that
some
the
point.
you are missing the culture if you don't speak the if you only use the iPod for AirPods for translation?
I honestly don't know. Um, maybe. I feel like my gut reaction is something like this. Initially, I think that we'll demonize it because we like to demonize new technology. But I think I think we demonize it. We say, oh, something is lost, but we don't complain about the calculator. We don't say, oh, something's lost, not understanding the real math and not. My grandpa can do any math in his head, for example. He just doesn't need a calculator. He just does it. And we're like, wow, grandpa can do math in his head. Wow, this is amazing. Whereas like for him, it's like, no, like my friends all do math in their head. Like he is actually very good at math as well. So he can do more complex math, but like anyone he knows can do at least basic math. Like we go like, hey, what's 159 times 52? They can be like, oh yeah, okay, got it. They can just like think of it, they can just do it, right? They're taught. And whereas me is like 159 to 52. Okay. So 150, so 155 times 10 is this times 5. Okay. Give me like half an hour. Right? So like, but it's not. It's times of change, and we don't demonize the calculator. So I think initially we'll say, "Oh my God, we're losing something," because we feel like something's being taken from us. But at the end of the day, no, I think it would probably, if I had to guess, I don't know, if I had to guess, it'd be something that would just become normal after time, and people just the same way that if I'm 92, they might say, "Wow, Azrin just speaks the language. He doesn't need the earphone. He just understands." Oh my God, this is crazy. But all the young people probably will have something in their ear, who knows what, where it's not necessary anymore.
Do you think in 2035 when we would have this discussion again and you would still run Calgary language nerds,
Sure.
would you think would be a more like a culture training than a language training?
I don't know, but it wouldn't shock me if it's language training.
I like that statement.
No, I'll tell you why. I have a very practical reason for it. Because if, let's say, right now, I've thought about this. It's like, okay, what if right now the ear pods were like mainstream? Like everyone used them. Like everyone right now used them. I'd be like, the card I would play is, oh, you want to, I'd be like, you want to use your ear pod? Watch this. Whoop. I don't need it. Like that's the card I'd play. Like, and I'd be like, don't you want to be someone? Don't you want to be team human? Or what are you team? Your team AI, dude. And then you'd be like, you can charge an absolute premium because it'd be like this premium special thing that only the rare people that like. Oh my god, like that's a card you can play. Like we don't. Here's a good example. Here's a really good example. We don't ride horses anymore to get around. We drive cars. We go on buses. People still ride horses. People still teach you how to ride. There's still a business there. That we don't. Horses have not all vanished, and they're not all in the wild running around free.
I still think that you still need to be able to read a map, even though you have Google Maps or any kind of maps that drive you everywhere. Because if your phone doesn't have battery, you are completely done, and you still need to be able to read a map. You still have places when you don't have coverage because all these AI cool things need coverage, and you still have places in which you have to come along to have. So, I don't think that the business will die. I'm just trying
The
to make an
market would change
understanding
for sure.
exactly. I'm trying to understand for myself how the market will change. That's the only thing.
I
I
think
don't think that the
a
business
good
will
way to
die.
think of it is a yin and yang symbol is a nice like visual. So in the yin and yang, you've got the two, you have the black side and the white side. In the black, you've got the white circle, and in the white, you got the black circle. And a way to think of it is like, no matter what, there's always a small pocket of something. So right now, the small pocket, like I'm someone who, for example, in my personal life, am very comfortable using a flip phone. I wouldn't care. If I had a flip phone, no smartphone, no nothing, no maps. If I had a flip phone in my personal life, I've actually thought very seriously about doing that. I was like, do I want to just go in that direction? I'm very comfortable with it for work and like, yeah, the social media, and I need everything for work. But like for personal life, hey, give me no cell phone. I'm very comfortable with it. I'm very comfortable. But that's a very rare perspective. That's not what most people do. But when you look at personally, when I start to talk to when I look at some of the younger folk, like younger than me, teenagers and such, that's not so uncommon because they're starting to go like, wait a sec, this is getting way too techy for us. And there are some, it's not everyone, it's not the majority, but there are people already in younger generations who, from what I can tell anyway, um, like they obviously use the tech a lot. I'm thinking of two people in particular that I know. They do use it's a we human behavior is a pendulum. Things swing, right?
Are we using the technology, or is the technology using us?
I don't know. Probably
Because
both.
that's exactly my biggest problem, because I do get in the same direction of using a flip phone, and I'm still because I'm still struggling with myself not to use the technology that much, but you end up getting the phone in the head anyhow. And I think one of the solutions that I thought for myself is to have that option of a flip phone for the weekend at least, because that's
Mm.
my private time, let's say, when I don't need to do anything.
Well, I think
Like,
it'll be like, who was I hearing? I just maybe a week ago, and I don't remember who it was. I was listening to someone. I wish I remember who, and they were talking about the first. Who was it? Anyway, it's not important. I was listening to someone on some podcast, and they're talking about the first generation that would get, for example, alcohol. Oh, like if the Native Americans, for example, here I'm in North America. So when the indigenous people have alcohol, when you're first introduced to it, oh, it can ravage you. Because you're not used to it. So we're the first generation with all this. We're the first generations, I suppose, with all this tech, right? We're the first one that have it. But over time, we're gonna find. I would not be surprised if we figure out the right balance as to how do we use this. I know tons of people, like a lot of people across pretty because I talk to hundreds of people a month at least, hundreds a month. I mean, that's been my life since I was 18, actually. Just the nature of work I've been around and my personality. So I talk to a lot of people. And one of the things that I notice is that across all ages, it is extremely common for people to stop using social media right now or to limit it. They're like, you know what? I realized Instagram was like not for me. So I just undownloaded all the apps. The only one they'll always say this. The only one I still use is this because, and they'll be like, my friend is there. It's to talk to my mom. It's to talk to my son. It's to talk to, like, I use WhatsApp only, but I've no, like, they limit it because they learn that this is awful for them when they get sucked into it. One of the things for smartphone usage, right, that I tell language learners all the time because it's super effective and it's one way to start using technology and to stop it from using you. So easy to do, and it's a win-win. The tech is happy, they're happy for you, they're happy to be using you, but you also think you're using them. It's a mutual symbiotic relationship where you make a separate, let's say Instagram, a separate Instagram account where you only follow people in the language you're learning and you scroll to your heart's content. You're equally addicted as before, but the more you scroll, and you're addicted because that's how the algorithm's designed. It's designed to get you addicted. Now you're addicted to like Russian content or Spanish content or Mandarin content. And now you're learning. The more you scroll, the more you learn. It's like you're thrilled to get sucked in.
correct. That's a big advantage. You're right. You are absolutely right. Uh, I want to make a small remark based on the connected to what you said before, that we are the
Sure.
first generation doing this. That's why I'm thinking a lot about the way in which I'm handling my kids' relationship with the
Mhm.
devices, because I'm judging with my mind as a first generation having them and seeing the negatives out of it. But maybe for him, if I let him get used to them from the beginning, he will not have this negative impact that we have. Of course, you need a lot of time. You need to act like a censorship in the back, but I still think it could be something good, or it could be something that it can help, but we never know. It's always a lucky guess. I would say it like this. Azren, with we want to come back to the purpose of the discussion, because we went
Sure, sure, sure.
too much in the devices topic. Um, with all the languages and cultures in your life,
Mhm.
a typical questions in the Whereabouts Tales podcast: where is home for you today?
Calgary.
It's 100% you
Calgary
can
for
say
sure.
that's home.
Calgary's home. There are yeah, Calgary's home.
Do you see home as a place, as a culture, as a relationship, as a feeling?
Mm, I probably view it. I probably view it in a more practical lens. Like it's practically home. Like my life is set up here. It's set up in Calgary. I think it's more practical for me. If I
Okay.
set my life up in another place, that would become home.
Okay, that's an interesting approach. So you don't connect it to anything, you connect it to your setup.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's right. There are certain places that feel like I feel at home in, but they're not my home.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Understand.
I can feel at home in France because I have lived there. I've spent quite a bit of time there. And I've learned their culture, and I've learned like when I'm there, the second I arrive, I'm like, oh yeah, like I remember how to be my French Azure, and I know how to make this place feel like home. It does feel like home. Um, the other place that can feel like home is probably Taipei specifically. Taipei can also feel a lot like home because I've had routines there. I've spent a lot of time there, and there's a homely feeling to it. But home, where is home? Calgary,
Nice, but it's a question of setup. That's interesting because I never heard this
mostly. Yeah,
statement
I think so.
and makes a lot of sense. Azrin, the discussion with you was a pleasure. Before we wrap this up, I have a small set of rapid fire questions
Let's do it.
that I have for every tailored based on the guest.
Let's do it.
Um, one language you'd master instantly.
Sorry, one language.
One new language you'd master instantly.
Gujarati.
How different is based on the languages that we know? Like
Like
I
compared to
know the
English, for
Europe
example, or
exactly. Yeah.
quite,
Go
very,
ahead.
quite different. There's some similarities, but different. Weirdly
One co-
similar to Spanish, actually.
Interesting, really
Weirdly, not like vocabulary wise per se, nothing like that. Not even, but oddly, that if you're gonna teach, like if you're whenever I've taught it, if the person speaks Spanish or even French for that matter, although yeah, even French for that matter could work too. If they speak it, it's easier to compare the grammar to Spanish or French than it is to English, for example.
interesting. I don't know if you know, but there is a country which is doesn't from the language perspective doesn't belong in the Eastern Europe part when I come from, and that's Hungary. I don't know if you know the
Hmm.
story of them, but do you know
I don't know the
that
story, but
they
I know that it's completely different.
exactly? So their language is something close to the Finnish language, which
Okay.
makes absolutely zero sense because they are in a completely two different ways parts of Europe. But it's an anomaly for their geographical position. It completely doesn't make sense because you speak a bit of the neighbor's language, but in this case, it's like far and away. One country that changed you.
France. India as well.
One belief about languages you no longer believe.
Immersion instantly leads to fluency.
Nice. Um, one book that shaped your worldview.
Hannah's Suitcase.
I don't know that one. Can you tell
It's for
me
kids,
the
actually. It's a kid's book. It's for kids. For kids to teach them about the Holocaust.
Okay, thank you. I will take this a
Cool.
tip for my son.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one small victory from last month.
I had a 90-minute Ukrainian conversation.
Chapeau. One sentence you'd tell your 18-year-old self.
Just keep going.
You're doing the right thing. What's the language that you talk to yourself in?
English.
Always?
Unless I'm specifically practicing a language, yes.
That's so interesting. Azrin, the last question. Um, if someone listening now feels stuck, like you maybe felt on different stages of your path, um, What would you tell them?
Recently I posted something on my Facebook and my actually Facebook and blog and LinkedIn everywhere. I posted it everywhere. It's like a semi long post about walking through explaining an emotion that I don't have the words. I don't know if the English language has the words for it. Frankly, I actually don't know if it does. It's something close to gratitude, but I don't think it's the right word. And so my life, if you're to look at the story of my life and how it's been structured, my life has been structured like this: live, 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 day to day. Something happens that shocks you to your core, and then you get gratitude times a million. And that's been that's been how my life has unfolded. So I'll give you some examples. I've known a ton of people who've died in very horrific ways, as an example. And so every time it has happened from a very young age, actually, where it's like, huh, someone died, like that person died. Whoa, that's like weird. Hannah Suitcase did that to me actually as well. Learning about the Holocaust did that to me. Learning about like, even going to India the first time did that to me as well. And you come back to Canada and you're like, this is different. Like my life is no longer the same anymore. And it's happened to me time and 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 time. I thought I was gonna be human trafficked at one point. I didn't, thank God. Time and time. So it's like gratitude because it doesn't happen. So like it almost happens. It's like if you have a near death experience, but then you don't die. Imagine that happening like all the time in your life. Something like that. Is that gratitude that you're alive? I don't know. It's something else. It's not gratitude anymore. It's something deeper. So I suppose I don't really know what the lesson is there. I don't really know why I felt compelled to share that, but it's something like, I don't know, like it's something like going through hard stuff is actually very good, maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
I heard an interesting saying that going through hard stuff in life is not a bug, it's a feature.
Yeah.
And I liked it because I think that's what makes you appreciate everything that you have. Is make you
Hmm.
appreciate the fact that um, that the police guy that stopped you did forgive you today. And I think that there's this burnt toast bread theory. Do you know that?
Maybe.
Um, like when
When I
you're
think of burnt toast, I think of strokes, right? When you have a stroke, don't you smell burnt toast?
no, 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 it's
Oh
not.
no, not that. Okay. No, I
But
was
you
like,
want
aren't you about
that
strokes? Like,
escalated. That escalated fast. No, is that theory that whenever you are attracted to something and
okay.
you don't do something that you are meant to be doing,
Hmm.
you're meant to do, is because of a reason. So, like when your bread is burning and you spend an extra amount of time there to clean the things, to open the window, and so on, and you don't do the things that you are planned to do that day, is because the universe somehow drag you in that direction. Of course, it goes a lot with fate and so on, but I want to say that I think all the big things that we go through in life, I think there are lessons that we are learning from, and I think I honestly think that they are not bugs; they are features. And as soon as we learn to see them as features, not as bugs, I think our happiness level could increase.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I wish I had like I wish I could be like really concise with like what I would say in that situation. All I know is one of the things I've probably since I was about 17, one thing I've been really trying to understand about myself, 'cause I think it'd be very helpful for people. Like I'm in like people have mental health challenges, like that's like a thing. I don't have that. Like I never have. Like I've been like good for a long time. Like I was good. Like I cut my father out of my life at a very young age. And like I was good like the next day, like days. Like I was good. I was actually very happy about it. It was like I've had this my whole life. I'm in like pretty much good pretty much all the time. I get sad, of course. Like of course I'm not like a robot. That's not what I mean, but like pretty much I'm in a good mental state most of the time. And I was about 17 when I started to think about that. And I was like, wait a sec, like there's something different here. And I've been trying since I was 17 in some way to figure out like what am I doing? And like how is that replicatable? Because that would be really helpful for people, I think. And I'm not saying that it makes me very like oh my God, I'm better. I've never I think it's a bunch of circumstances, DNA, circumstances and DNA, frankly. Um And I think a lot about that. So when you ask me, like, what would I tell someone who's kind of stuck or struggling, whatever, the first thing I thought about was that post where I told you I thought about all these circumstances because that was something that was unique in my life where and I didn't have a tragic life, to be fair. It wasn't like, oh my God, my mom died, then my dad died, then my brother. No, it wasn't like that. Or it wasn't like, oh, then I got cancer and it wasn't like a tragic story. It wasn't like, oh my God, that guy's had it. No, absolutely not. The complete opposite. But I can think back to things that really like, like, struck me emotionally. And like, I think for me, a lot of, I think a lot of it has to do with perspective because when you've had a lot of things like that, it's always easy to compare. Like, okay, well, this sucks, but I remember when I thought I was almost human trafficked. I mean, that's not happening. That's pretty damn good. That was amazing. I remember like there's like a year I didn't sleep, basically, because we're having some family things that we're trying to deal with, and it was very, very difficult. And like every night we're just waking up every hour. Like think about that for a whole year, you basically don't sleep. That's that's pretty rough. That sucks. Like anyone who's gone through sleep training of babies and such, like anyone who's gone through that, they know what that life is, right? It's not pleasant. And then you think, well, at least I'm sleeping every night. That's pretty good. Like I'm pretty happy about that. I remember like this and that. Um, and then I also think it has to do with like something with like I was thinking about this last night about like accomplishment. Like I was thinking about like I was watching this video about like online haters, and I had this like mental experiment. I was like, what if everyone on the internet, like I woke up one day and like everyone's like sending me all these nasty messages for whatever reason. Someone made some AI video and like I was like a celebrity and everyone hated me now. And my first thought was like, well, my sister loves me. I love my sister. Like, I just turn my phone off. Be like, all right, that's done. I'll just talk to my mom, talk to my sister. I like my one friend. He's a good guy to hang out with. We'd kind of laugh about it, be like, oh my God, that's pretty freaking crazy, isn't it? Like, I know it is pretty crazy. What a weird internet this is. And it would be like, I wouldn't like it, but I'd be okay. I'd be like, well, at least I speak all these languages. That's a real accomplishment. I'm a kind person. I know I can say I'm kind. I know that. I looked after my sister. She's special needs. I'm in her guardian since I was 18. I was like, well, I did that. I definitely did that. I'm not the worst human on earth because I looked after. So I think having real hard evidence for me is quite helpful. So I can look back, and be like, I know that's true and I know that's good. Therefore, I'm not a complete shitface. I'm not, I might suck. I might be a really bad human, but I'm clearly not, my soul is not irredeemable because I did this one thing. That's clearly very good. So I think having like some of that evidence for me is quite helpful, very grounding.
I want to say a lot, but I didn't want to interrupt you. And but
Sure. Yeah.
because that made sense, everything what you said, and I think the as long as we can take our happiness from the small things, like you said, to see everything in perspective, to think about this, like I'm sleeping every night in comparison to I don't know 5 years ago, and I was not able to sleep. I have food that I can feed to my family, in comparison to when I was a kid and we didn't had something like. I'm not saying this is my example, but I'm just saying that this, when you start seeing things in perspective, I think that's really helpful, and I think.
And I think that the thing is like, so I've heard people who will say like, yeah, but how do you feel grateful about the tea or the sleep? Like, how do you like? That's it sounds very like, oh, it sounds like, oh yeah, it sounds so what's that word? Cliche. And I'd say like for me, I think it's real because if I say like, man, I could sleep, it's like I remember when I wasn't like I remember not sleeping, or like when I'm like, man, at least I don't have mosquito bites on my body. I remember waking up with 50 new mosquito bites, like actually having counting, like I think I got 33 new mosquito bites that night. I remember, I remember being in China and not being able to wash my clothes because of a weird language barrier and I was actually stuck. And I was like, I can't do laundry. This is I actually don't know what to do. I remember I remember in I remember not being able to eat in China actually for the first like 5 days. That was really tricky. It was really tricky to eat, which was my own fault, but still it was quite hard. Um a weird set of circumstances. But like there's been a number of things like when I say, oh, at least I have a nice cup of tea, and I'm it's not like a thing where I go like I'm making it up. It's like no, no, no. Like I've lived something where it's like I remember when da 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 da. I remember being, I remember having that. I remember being in the hospital at 7 and having like a heart like a actual disease that could have. very well killed me or at least given me heart complications for the rest of my life. I don't have heart. I played very competitive soccer. Jesus, like that's man, I really dodged a bullet there. Like wow, like I've had many. I didn't die in a motorcycle accident. I know someone who did. I didn't. There's right by my house. There's a traffic light where someone who bullied me in high school, the only person who had any level of success bullying me, because most of the time I'm not bothered by them. Only person who kind of had a certain level of success, he was hit by a car right by my house, and like his family put up a whole like flower thing, and like it was like whoa, someone I didn't like has died, and I'm sad for him. Like that moved me. His friend who bullied me too, he then became friendly. That was weird as well. Like it's time and thing after thing after thing after thing.
What I can read between the lines of what you said, Azran, is that you don't take things for granted.
Sure, yeah,
And I think that's extremely important. I think entitlement is something which is a big danger in our society. So everything that we take as as being always there, like health, like being alive, like being having no problem with the justice. I don't know, being not bullied and so on. Everything is something. It's everything that we take for granted. I think that's what makes us a bit of unhappy.
sure,
Yeah.
yep.
Asrin, I can tell you you're a fantastic human being. I enjoy the hell out of this conversation.
Thank you. I enjoyed it too.
Um, and I hope we get to do to do it again one day.
Sure.
Thanks so much for your time,
Thank you.
and
Thank you for having me on.
everything that you said will be linked in the show notes caption. I will try to link your social media accounts as well, so that everyone
Amazing.
that
That'd be great.
wants to reach you, they can reach you.
Sure. Sounds good.
Thank you, Azrin. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
one.
Yeah,
Bye
you
bye.
too. Bye bye.